Well, hi everyone. It's great that you've all come here and we're really happy to see so many faces here. My name's Mfon. As Miss Babilo said, I left Eltham in 2020. I studied economics at Durham and now I'm working in sales and trading at JP Morgan.
Yeah, thank you all for coming to speak to us, to listen to us today. I'm Annie and I also left in 2020 with Mfon. I currently go to Exeter University where I'm in my 4th year studying economics and Spanish. Today we're going to talk to you a little bit about forging women's economic empowerment, as generally speaking, economics is not massively popular amongst women.
Yeah, so as Annie just said, women are, as you can see from the stats behind me, I'll move out of the way a little bit, but women are largely underrepresented in economics. And this is a super important point because everything requires diversity. And without diversity of women within economics, we lack diversity of thought, perspective, experiences. And I think with all these things combined, we can definitely move toward advancements in economics. There are also issues that disproportionately affect women, such as the gender pay gap, childcare policies, and issues such as that. So with more women at the table and voicing their opinion on these things, we can definitely move towards more inclusive economic policies.
I think this is particularly poignant for me because when I was at Eltham, I studied economics A-level, and out of 30 economics students, I was actually the only girl to study the subject. And then when I went on to university, I've still found myself in a lot of situations in seminars where I've been the only girl in the room. And I think that's something particularly from our own experiences, we're really keen to change going forwards, as we feel there's real scope for women to make a real difference in the subject.
And hopefully our talk today will inspire some of you guys to look into economics as well.
So you're probably wondering why economics is so important and why we're here talking to you about it today. And I think for us, economics is important because of the impact that it has on everything in your everyday lives. It gives us a real insight into how society operates, and to break it down into sort of what it fundamentally is, it's all about the decisions in production, distribution and consumption. And essentially that is, how much of something should we produce? What should we produce? Where should we sell it? Should we sell it online, in shops? Should we sell it here? Should we sell it in Manchester? And in terms of consumption, it's what do you want to buy when you go to the shops and how much do you want to pay for it? This is really important because this sort of spending contributes to the global economy, and the government are in charge of designing policies to improve the global economy. And if they can't understand how we make decisions and how we behave, it's impossible for them to make effective policies to improve the economy for everybody. And this brings on to the last point, which is about the well-being of society. And a lot of these policies are in place to improve society for all of us, particularly in areas such as inequality. If people are able to understand why we make the decisions that we do, they're far more able to tailor solutions towards a better future for everybody. So now we're just going to tell you a little bit about how we both got into economics in the first place. So for me, I've actually been studying economics for a really long time. I was very lucky to be able to take economics at GCSE level. And although it was very basic then, I really enjoyed it. So I then went on to take it at A level alongside maths and physics. And I think for me, what I like about economics is, as you can see, I clearly like quite mathsy subjects. But economics is a really nice way to sort of bring people into that and to really apply maths in a way that's people orientated and to do with the world around us. And for me, I found that really interesting. So I then went on to university to study it at Exeter, where I picked up Spanish, which is something that I also enjoy.
So for myself, unlike Annie, I didn't study economics until I went to uni. And my journey into economics kind of started in year 12 when I was having a bit of a crisis. Like, I'm going to uni in 2 years, I have no idea what I want to study. And at the time, there was a lot of different subjects I was really passionate about. And how I stumbled into economics is I had a conversation with my dad about what I'm interested in, what he thinks I'm good at. And I remember one of my stronger passions was maths, and he thought, why don't you explore economics as well? Because it's a very good way of incorporating maths into people, into the world, into society, as Annie mentioned earlier. And I read this book on the screen called A Very Short Introduction into Economics. And I just remember reading it and just being completely fascinated by what I was reading. I thought it was super interesting, super real life, just completely applicable. So I picked up economics at uni. As I said, I did maths and economics in my first year, admittedly. And then I think I was just more naturally inclined to the economic side of things. So then I tailored my degree towards that and then graduated with BA Economics. And one of the points I wanted to make was, so Annie did BSc, which is Bachelor of Science, and I did BA Economics. So BA Economics is more theoretical. You're writing essays from the very beginning, whereas BSc is the more mathematical side of it. So economics doesn't just have to be about maths, and that's something that I wanted to touch on, because for me, essays was what I was more passionate about and what I was better at. So doing BA Economics allowed me to explore that and combine the things that I enjoyed.
Yeah, so as you can see, there's something for everyone in economics. So now we're just going to talk to you a little bit about what we've used our economics degrees to go on and do. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is something that I've been very heavily involved in over my time at university, which is a company called 180 Degrees Consulting. And for those of you that don't know what consulting is essentially a financial service that provides business advice to support and improve companies. And essentially they go into a company, they establish what the problem is, define the problem, go away and collect data and come up with recommendations to help the company go forwards and improve in the area that they're looking to improve in. And 180 Degrees Consulting is a global organisation with branches based in all universities, and it's an entirely student-run consultancy. And we essentially work with charities and non-profit organisations based all over the world. So I think this year we finally hit all 5 continents, as we had a South American client, which was incredibly exciting. And so essentially, I am very privileged to be the managing director of the Exeter branch. So my role is really broad. I look to acquire clients, so I'm in conversations with lots of different charities, trying to establish what their issues are and how we can help them. I also acquire partnerships for the branch, so we're very lucky to be partnered with Ernst & Young, which is a big finance firm, and another consulting firm who mentor us and provide training sessions for our consultants. I'm also in charge of recruiting a team of consultants to work on the projects. So I think we currently have around 50 people working in the company across a broad range of projects over the year. And I also am in charge of generally coordinating and organising the branch and strategising to grow and improve it further. And as you can see, these are a few photos because last weekend I actually attended the London Summit, whereby all the presidents of the branches in the UK came together in London to share ideas. And that was really exciting because I think for me, what I love most is taking something that I've done and being able to apply it to a real world situation and to actually really make a difference for people. And we've been able to have a real impact for a lot of different charities and to help them grow and to help other people. And that's been really, really rewarding and something that I've really, really loved. And then the second way that I have used my degree is by working at Sky, which you may be familiar with from Sky Sports, Sky Movies, Sky News. And I was very lucky last summer to intern at Sky. I was a commercial strategy intern and I was based in a propositions team. And basically a propositions team are the team that come up with the product ideas and they come up with sort of bundles and different offerings to send out to you guys to then buy. And so I worked specifically within the broadband team and I spent 2 months working alongside loads of different departments on actually launching a new Wi-Fi, which has come out at the back end of last year. And I think when working in this role, I realised that a lot of the skills that I'd learned through my economics degree had actually been incredibly transferable to this, particularly the ability to sort of synthesise data and have an attention to detail, which is really, really important. Some other quite important things for this role was PowerPoint skills, which you'll come to realise when you're getting jobs, you have to be very good at making PowerPoints, which maybe you wouldn't expect when you're at school, but PowerPoint is actually very important. And also communication skills, as you have to talk to all kinds of people, be that your boss, people even higher up, and also external clients. So an interesting client that I was able to work with, I don't know if any of you are interested in gaming, but there's sort of an esports company called Guild, and they basically have gamers that compete at different competitions. And we were looking to do a sort of package deal with them whereby they would offer out something if you bought a Wi-Fi package. So that was really exciting to work with somebody different or something a bit different like that. But yeah, that was basically what I got up to at Sky.
So as I mentioned before, I work in the sales and trading department at JP Morgan, which is a really large investment bank. And I thought I would give you guys an overview of what that actually means. So in the markets division, there's three main elements: sales, trading, and research. So I sit within sales, but trading and research are super important parts of markets as well. On the left, you've got this picture of like 6 screens, which is a bit intimidating, but my actual desk at work does look a little bit like that. So you've got this keyboard, which has got all different colors. It's a Bloomberg keyboard. And then you've got this machine here, which is a microphone kind of system that you can communicate with the traders with. So most of my day is spent dialing numbers and speaking to traders, getting prices out of them. And then I only have 4 screens, but I do know quite a few of 6 screens. And even though that looks like a lot of screens, it doesn't feel like enough, as crazy as that is to say, because it's just not everything fits. So sales, trading, and research. So sales are the people that interact with clients outside of the bank. They're the ones that are on the phone speaking to them, but also if a client has an issue or they have something that they're wanting to execute, like a trade, they'll come and speak to us. And then our job is to find out what the price is of that thing and market it to them. We also have to advise them on the best investment decisions, because ultimately, while we want to make money, our job is to make the client happy on the other side. So even if we're losing a little bit of money, if it strengthens our relationship with them, that is the goal at the end of the day. So traders, I think that's the part of markets which most people have a little bit of familiarity with. You might see those adverts on YouTube about stocks and trading, and you get these charts like this, like sell or buy, which is buy when the price is low, sell when the price is high, which is like a boiled down version of what trading is, but of course it's a lot more complex than that. So the traders in my department, they will look at different ways of analysing, okay, this might be at this price now, where do we think it will get to, what are the factors, what are the risks that might affect that? And they make money for the bank by having a good idea, buying low, selling high. And then research. So those are the people that you probably won't get as much interaction with. They kind of sit in a little box away from everybody else, and they form the basis of what we think as a bank. Like if JP Morgan says, this is our view on what's going to happen, it's probably come from research. So they spend most of their days looking at charts, analysing what they think is going to happen. They don't directly interact with clients themselves, but they produce all the research and all the ideas that we have. They all come from research, so they're a really important part. And then I had a little question for everybody, because I wanted to show you guys how broad trading is. So I'm going to put 4 things on the screen, and I'm going to do like a hands up kind of thing. And one of those things will not be traded. So we'll see who gets it right. So the first one, orange juice. The second one, live cattle. C, olive oil. And D, the weather. So I'll give you like a few seconds to think about it. I know that wasn't much time, but you've had a chance to think about it. So put your hand up if you think it's A. Okay. Very few, very few. B. Okay. C. Okay. And D. Okay, so D is the majority answer. The actual answer is C. So yeah, as you can see, trading is super broad. Orange juice and live cattle are actually things that people on my in my division actually do trade at work. Olive oil is kind of a trick one. It's not traded, but different forms of oil are traded, like palm oil, vegetable oil, sunflower oil. And then the weather, it's really interesting. You've got different products based on the weather, how we think the average temperature might be, and you can trade on whether you think that's going to be higher or lower. So trading isn't just stocks and shares and FX, it's a really broad amount of things. And so I hope that illustrates a little bit why I like my job and why I think it's interesting. So then inflation, if you're familiar with economics, which I'm sure most people aren't very familiar, inflation is one of the key concepts within economics that I look at work. So inflation is the increase in the price of goods and services in an economy over time. So it's basically just things getting more expensive is one way of looking at it. So as you can see at the bottom, the price of a cup of coffee in 1970, according to Investopedia, was about 25 cents and now is about 1.85. But I'm not really sure on the accuracy of this because I'm pretty sure coffee is a lot more expensive than that today. But it's just an illustration of things getting more expensive to produce, to consume, etc. And then I don't know how many people in this room would have heard of it, but there is also this phenomenon called the Freddo Index, which is looking at how the cost of a Freddo bar, like the chocolate, has increased so much over time. So in 2000 it was 10p, and now it is, I think it's 35 or 40p today. Yeah, so it's a very large increase, as Freddo bars have increased much more than the actual inflation rate in the UK, which is a bit, as a consumer, it's a bit of a robbery, but we won't get into the politics of it. And now I've got Beyonce on the screen as well, which is probably like, why is Beyonce on the screen about inflation? But there was a headline that came up in the FT, which is a newspaper that is written basically discussing all the major things affecting the economy, which was, for anyone that can't read it, Beyonce blamed for stubbornly high Swedish inflation. So when she did her Renaissance tour, it opened in Sweden, and it was the first one of the whole tour, I believe. And because so many people went to Sweden to go see it, it actually drove up the cost of hotel prices. It drove up the cost of restaurants, just because there was so much demand at that within Sweden because of her performance there. And I thought this was really interesting to include because on my desk, the traders I interact with, they actually do trade on inflation. So someone like Beyonce going and performing in Sweden actually affects their day-to-day job. It's something that they would consider. They might think because inflation is going to spike, they might go and buy things that at a lower level on Swedish inflation. And the same thing is also going to happen when Taylor Swift goes and performs there, I believe, in May. So I love my job because of the headlines that you might think are completely separated and completely different from finance. It actually affects my day-to-day, and it's just super interesting. And then my actual job title, so I work within macro sales. So some of the day-to-day tasks I do is reading research, reading what's current, reading some of the headlines like the Beyonce one I showed you. And then, discussing with clients and speaking to traders and just keeping a really good grasp on what is happening in the economy and how that's going to affect what we're doing. And as I touched on, what I enjoy about my job, I think it's super interesting, it's super dynamic, very stimulating. I think I was saying to somebody earlier, like the last time I worked my brain this hard was probably like GCSE, like A-level time. It's just constantly very interesting. There's always more to learn because in a job like this, you never stop learning, things never stop changing. When things like the pandemic happened, it affects our day-to-day so much, and it just makes things super interesting. We've also got a large variety of work, a large variety of clients. As I said, like orange juice and live cattle, like you just wouldn't expect that those would be things that people actually make bets on and lose and make money. And then lastly, I'd say international connections. On my job, I'm talking to traders that are working out of Singapore, working in New York, and just all over the world. So I just get to meet people from everywhere and just build my network within people across the globe.
Okay, so as you can see, economics is clearly very heavily involved in loads of different aspects of life, and we hope we've been able to demonstrate that to you. So now we'd like to hand it back to you and ask if you've got any questions for us at all about anything from economics to what we study at university, anything at all.
I have a question. So if you were to give advice to your younger selves, so when you were at school, perhaps where these guys are now, what would you say looking back now on the decisions that you made and how you made them?
It's a good question.
I think I would say make the most of every day. And I know it sounds a bit cliche, but you're only in sixth form for 2 years. And for us, it was even shorter and it went incredibly quickly. And I've done 4 years at Exeter and that's coming to a close now. And that's also gone incredibly quickly. And then once I start work in September, I'll never have a summer holiday again. So I would say just enjoy every day, because as much as A-levels, GCSEs, exams might feel like a slog right now, you have to make the most of it, because you'll look back and you'll miss it a lot, because I know that we definitely do.
Yeah, no, definitely. The summer holidays thing especially speaks to me, because now that I'm on a working contract, I only have 25 days of holiday a year, which is literally 5 weeks across the whole year, which feels like nothing. I'd say when I was sitting in your shoes, I think from like year 7 up all the way until year 12, I thought that I always wanted to do medicine. And then when it actually got to the point of this is when I like look in things and start applying, I was suddenly thrown into, I'm not sure what I want to do anymore. I'm not sure if this is for me. And I think that can be a really scary feeling, more so for the sixth formers. I'm sure people younger than that, you really, like, there's no deadline on when you need to know what it is that you want to go into in the future. And even at uni, there are people that change their mind. They might do something like engineering and then go into something completely different like finance. So I think the best way to find out what you want to do sometimes is actually finding out what you don't like and being able to filter that. And so I'd say, don't be scared about things that you might not know, but it actually gives you more opportunities about what is out there, and then speaking to people as well. I know Miss Badlow is a big advocate for LinkedIn, so I think that's a really good platform as well to get to know people, get to know more about the industries that you're interested in, because it really does cater for so many different people. So yeah.
And just to add on to that, I would say don't ever worry about restricting your options, because if you follow something that you like, even if it may not necessarily be a direct route into something, that doesn't matter. You can study English at university and still go and work in finance if you really want to. So don't panic about feeling like you need to have everything planned when you're making decisions now, because it really isn't the case unless you want to do medicine. But yeah, just choose what you enjoy and what you think gives you opportunities. But I think the most important thing is to just enjoy it.
Andy, can I ask, we'll have some girls in the room who might well be the only girl in their class. What advice would you give them?
Speak up, don't let them talk over you. Because I had a lot of my friends were in my economics class, and I think they used to get quite rowdy. I'm sure you're all very well behaved, but I think sometimes I'd feel a bit nervous to speak up in front of the class, because being the only girl, it's quite intimidating to kind of put yourself out on the line and say what you think in front of everybody else. But I would say is a lot of the time you will be right. So don't be afraid to speak up and be confident.
And can I ask, so what are you going to do after university?
So I was very lucky to be offered a return offer to a graduate scheme at Sky. So in September, I will be going back to work as a business strategy analyst at Sky.
And I think that's a really good example, actually, and kind of goes back to the point you were making about engaging in opportunity, because kind of through the internship that you secured, you have now gone on to find yourself a permanent job, and that is so important. You know, the earlier that you start making those connections, so when you're in sixth form, you're at school, you get the opportunity to engage in work experience, to actually go out and interact with employers, and it's really interesting to watch the extent to which those relationships made very early on kind of carry through whilst you're at university and then into the world of work. So that is so important.
How did you find the first day of your job?
So my first day of my job was actually on my birthday, so it's a really sad way to start. My first day of work, I think I'd done the internship with my company, and for those of you who don't know what an internship is, it's like a work experience, kind of short period, and if you are successful in it, then you'll get the offer to return. So when I did return, I was lucky that I did know most of the people on my team. It hadn't changed that much, but I think your first day of work, like your first day of school, is kind of daunting. You want to look your best, you want to give the best first impression. And then especially when it's my birthday as well, it's just like, how do I go about that? Do I tell people it's my birthday? So it's very different having a birthday at school, because at work, sadly, it just felt like no one cared. In all honesty, it was kind of sad because, it was like, oh, happy birthday. And then that was it. Like, there wasn't much more than that. But I enjoyed it because it was like, this is the first day of my future. So it's kind of exciting. Yeah.
Did you meet any famous people at Sky?
Do you know what? I was constantly on the lookout for Roy Keane, but I never actually ran into him. But when I go back in September, I'm going to really, really try to. I think we had, if anyone's an F1 fan, we had Jensen Button come in and give a talk to us. So we got to see him, which was quite exciting. And they also brought a Love Islander to our summer party, which was interesting as well. But the building where they record all the TV stuff is actually literally next door to where the rest of us work. So I think hopefully from September, there'll definitely be an opportunity to spot a few celebrities.
During your work, did you face any challenges?
I think that's a really good question. There are loads of challenges, like any new thing in your life. There's always challenges on like, how are you going to be perceived? How do I do things? How does everyone else do it? I think some of the main challenges that people face going into like the working world is like a sense of imposter syndrome, kind of like, I don't know if you're good enough because everyone else knows more than you. And I think it's something you have to get comfortable with pretty quickly.